So here's every movie I watched in October. First, I watched Mishima, A Life in 4 Chapters. And I'm not even sure how this movie even exists. It's an unconventionally structured biopic, an American art film in Japanese that's never been released in Japan about a controversial Japanese author. It's produced by George Lucas
I don't like sand.
and Francis Ford Coppola, directed by cinema's weird uncle, and written by his brother and sister-in-law. The film follows the life of Japanese author Yukio Mishima, his obsession to make his life a work of art, and the tragic conclusion to that pursuit. The film is structured so uniquely that it took me quite some time to grasp what was even happening. His life is split into 4 chapters. Each chapter begins with the events unfolding on the last day of his life, and the first 3 also include biographical portions of different stages of his life, as well as fictional stories based on his writings that mirror his life during those times. The uniqueness of that structure, along with the themes and overall look of the film, were so creative and mesmerizing that it almost demands a second viewing to fully take everything in. Then I watched Chop Shop. Director Ramin Barani's first 3 movies are a masterclass in realism. He examines situations that may seem mundane and just like day-to-day life, but he is able to dig deeper and place you in these characters' shoes so effectively. He takes seemingly real people with seemingly real struggles and turns them into an engaging piece of art. But of those 3 movies, this film affected me the least. It still offers that signature realism, especially in how he paints the location. But I think the kid who's the main character just seems too improbable for it to be fully pulled off. He just seemed like a movie character, while the rest of this film was this gritty depiction of the slums of New York City. He's a 12-year-old orphan who grinds out these 10+ hour shifts at the auto repair shop, outwits adults to make extra cash, and supports his 16-year-old sister. But as a testament to Barani's skill, this still almost feels like a borderline documentary. Next, I saw See How They Run, a new whodunit murder mystery starring a cast full of characters including Saoirse Ronan, Sam Rockwell, Adrian Brody, amongst others. Its top review on Letterboxd is the Wes Andersonification of Knives Out. And yeah, pretty much. It's just quirky, stylized fun, full of weird puns and wordplay, a number of great character actors, and it really keeps you engaged throughout the light runtime. In the end, the reveal maybe isn't entirely satisfying. There are almost no clues or breadcrumbs throughout the film that could lead you to discover the real culprit. But this genre and style of mystery is always pretty enjoyable, whether or not you can guess who done it. Then I watched God's Creatures. This is a slow burn drama that follows the day-to-day lives of a family in a tight-knit fishing community. One day, their estranged son returns home out of nowhere and tries to fit back into their lives and find his place in the local economy. It then takes a much darker, unexpected shift about halfway through and begins to present moral dilemmas very reminiscent of Bong Joon-ho's movie Mother, and ask questions about how far a family would go to defend their child, even if they know that child is actually guilty. The setting of the small working class community is painted so vividly, you can almost smell that fishy air. Emily Watson's restrained performance as the mother is a masterwork in minimalism, and Paul Mescal is such an intriguing up-and-comer who just keeps getting these interesting roles. Then I watched 3 films at the Heartland International Film Festival: Days of Daisy, Empire of Light, and The Whale. I went into the festival looking to see this light 70-minute independent drama filmed in Indianapolis by an Indiana-based crew, but ended up going to the wrong theater. The friendly Heartland employees didn't have to try too hard to convince me to see the movie that was playing at their theater instead. And that movie was Days of Daisy, which on IMDb is called Daisy and Smiling Jack.
Huh?
It's a quirky indie romantic comedy which follows an aging single woman who realizes she wants to have children. She finds purpose for the time being as an interim art teacher in a school whose art programs are being cut, and meets this local artist guy who's all she's been looking for. Except he doesn't want to have children. It's a pretty light-hearted, endearing film that also wrestles with some more complex life questions. The writer, producer, star, Jency Griffin Hogan, was there for a Q&A following the film, and shared with us that most of this film was based on her actual life. And that personalness made it even better. Empire of Light. I was really intrigued going into this. It takes place in and around a classic movie theater, stars one of the greatest working actresses, was written and directed by an interesting filmmaker partnered with cinematography by Roger Deakins, but this was the longest movie under 2 hours I've ever seen. It tries to cover a ton of ground on so many topics, but ends up not saying much at all on any of the topics. The big takeaway is, racism bad, cinema good. The performances were great, it looked great, but for something that you can tell wants so badly to be a moving art house drama and awards season player, it didn't really work. The Whale. The Whale. The highly anticipated latest from Darren Aronofsky marks Brendan Fraser's long-awaited return to the leading role. This is an adaptation of a play in which an overweight professor tries to form and re-establish connections while refusing help and dealing with his own health issues. It essentially all takes place within one location, Brendan Fraser's character's apartment. People come and go in a nature which really reveals this is adapted from a stage play. They interact with Fraser's character in a manner ranging from sympathy to pity to hatred and back again. Each of the characters are flawed in one way or another, but some are so unlikable and even evil that they almost become like caricatures. But all in all, this is much more dark, depressing, and intense than I anticipated. Although I'm sure it's going to get a ton of hype when it's officially released on December 9th, especially due to that lead performance. Then I watched Mad Max and Mad Max 2. The plot of these is essentially just this Eric Andre skit.
Think I could get a little squirt of gas?
Squirt of gas.
I just love that sweet, sweet taste. I noticed you were pumping gas. You think I could get a little squirt of it? I drink this stuff. I live it up.
I live it up.
In this dystopian world, the value of machines, and specifically the fuel to power those machines, is more valuable than human life. The desolate desert dystopia makes for such a compelling setting, and George Miller's world building really drags you in. Neither of the Mad Maxes are super heavy on conventional plot, but use its unique atmosphere, mysterious characters, and intense chase scenes to keep you hooked. And I've noticed that this era of film is filled with these stories of anti-hero men with their own sense of justice, drifting through these semi-dystopian worlds. And let me tell you, it never gets exhausting rooting for the anti-hero. Then I saw Pardoned by Grace. This is the first movie I worked on over 3 years ago, and it finally premiered this month. It's based on a true story of God's power to change someone's life and follows the reluctant spiritual journey of a guy who is constantly in and out of jail but eventually ends up becoming a prison minister. It's a low budget film, and that especially shows in the sound mixing and edit. And a majority of the supporting characters were played by either crew members or volunteers from the church and community. But the story is powerful and it affected me quite a bit, even though I knew exactly what was coming. And if you'd like to uncover an interesting subplot, pay close attention to every scene that I appear in. I play an ageless police officer as well as a prison visitor, which could definitely cause continuity issues if anyone looked into it too deeply. Then I watched Barb Star go to Vista Del Mar on a plane. I loved the tone of this. It's so goofy, has these weird musical numbers, memorable fun characters, an evil villain plot that's foiled by wacky, everyday, accidental heroes. Right when this started, I felt like I knew exactly what it would be, and it was just that. Next I watched Medicine for Melancholy, Barry Jenkins' directorial debut. This offers hints of what made Moonlight so great. The attention to the subtle details of an understated longing for relationship and love, the distinct sense of place, whether it's San Francisco or Miami, creative handheld shots, a loose plot where seemingly nothing happens. But in this one, two people who just met at a party the night before end up spending the day together. They wander around while coming to terms with the changing city around them. And they get to know each other, knowing it won't last longer than today, but also maybe hoping that it will. Side note, I did not at all expect this to be so undersaturated. It was nearly black and white, but interesting choice there for sure. Then I saw Triangle of Sadness, which won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival this year and just got its wider release. This is a class satire told in 3 chapters that mostly follows a model and influencer couple. The couple's relationship and status is set up, they embark on a luxury cruise, the cruise crashes. It's a genuinely and uniquely funny poke at ultra-wealthy individuals. Maybe it's not bringing any groundbreaking class commentary, but it's decently conversation-provoking, and I definitely appreciate how well it handled that ambiguous ending. And yeah, there's an extended scene of explosive vomit and diarrhea, so... To conclude the month, I watched The Fly, the 1958 one. This is more a murder mystery with elements of sci-fi rather than the horror that I initially expected. It's told mostly in flashback by a woman who's the main suspect in the murder of her scientist husband. Despite the plot, it has a strangely cheery atmosphere and semi-happy ending. I was so surprised how completely different the plot is from the 1989 one. About the only similarity is there's a scientist who creates a teleportation device, and something goes wrong when he tries to teleport himself. So there was every movie I watched in October. Here's a favorite and a least favorite.